Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Anki Kwan. I'm a California lawyer. I'm sorry that I haven't made videos in such a long time. For those of you who have watched my videos, thank you so much. It's just that I really haven't found anything super exciting to talk about. And I've also been really busy. So even though I have found some things that are kind of interesting, I just haven't had the time to make any videos, so I apologize for that, and I'd like to get better and be more consistent in the future. But I may not make all blockchain specific videos. I want to focus more on videos that businesses in general may be interested in, but I'm still interested in blockchain and how the SEC deals with the blockchain community and developments coming from the SEC. Today, I wanted to make this video because Commissioner Pierce, she came out with a proposed rule that I think is super exciting for the crypto community. So I wanted to go over that and my thoughts on that, and mostly go over the proposed rule and what she said in her speech proposing this rule. If you read the rule, you may or may not find this interesting, but I'm trying to put this in terms that is easily understandable by a lay person and not necessarily a securities lawyer or someone with legal training. So I hope you do find this useful. Commissioner Pierce introduced her concept by telling a story of being stranded in New Jersey without gas or being very, very low on gas. I went to New Jersey a few years ago, and to my shock, I was told that you cannot pump your own gas in New Jersey because it's against the law. I live in California, and I've never had anyone pump my gas. In fact, I thought it was the weirdest thing when I was with my friend with a handicap placard, and he told me that if he honked his horn and waved his placard around, that the attendant had to come pump his gas. Commissioner Pierce was faced with a dilemma. She could either pump her gas and violate the law, or she could not pump her gas and be absolutely certain that her car would break down because it was so low on gas. When she got to the gas station, the gas attendant refused to pump her gas because it was an extremely rainy and stormy night. So the gas attendant decided, I don't care that it's against the law. I don't care that it's my job to pump your gas. It's super rainy out, so if you want to pump your gas, you risk breaking the law. Commissioner Pierce was faced with a decision. She either could pump her gas and risk violating the law, or she can guarantee that her car would break down and be stranded in Jersey if she didn't pump her own gas. Faced with this situation, she decided, I'm going to pump my gas even though I can be arrested for breaking the law. The chances of that happening are low, whereas the chances of her car breaking down are 100% certain. Given these circumstances, she decided to take the risk and break the law. She noticed that a similar trend happened in the crypto community. They could either try to fit within the US securities framework and either register their tokens or offer and sell their tokens subject to an exemption, or they can take the risk and sell their tokens without registering or without using an exemption. Given this choice, a lot of founders, even the ones who are well-meaning and intend to comply with the law, decided to take the risk and not register their token sales or sell them under an exemption, because one method is sure to be slow, and the other method is sure to be a lot quicker, and the chances of getting sanctioned by the SEC is low because they're not the only company offering and selling tokens. There are many, many, many companies, especially at the peak of ICOs, doing the exact same thing. Given this, companies decided to take the risk. Commissioner Pierce also observed that US securities laws as it currently stands doesn't really work for tokens or decentralized networks. If you're offering or selling a token pursuant to the securities laws and you're either registering your tokens or offering them under some kind of exemption, those tokens don't magically transform from non-securities. They don't magically transform from securities to non-securities. So how do you bridge that gap when these tokens no longer have the characteristic of a security? It doesn't really make sense for those tokens to be subject to the securities laws at that time. Under the current framework, a token that's sold as a security remains a security, and that really isn't realistic with tokens. In order to get a handle on what this means, I think it's important to go over a concept called the Howey test. If you've watched any of my videos or have followed the SEC, you're probably very aware of the Howey test. We're going over the Howey test because Howey is the test that the SEC has used to determine whether offers and sales of tokens are offers and sales of securities. The Howey test was originally applied to the offer and sale of orange groves, and then it was later applied to all sorts of crazy assets like chinchillas and whiskey casks, and now they're being applied to tokens. In the world of tokens, the Howey test quickly becomes unfeasible, or it just quickly stops making sense in the world of tokens. What the Howey test says is a token is a security if the buyer is buying the token expecting a third party or a promoter to make their tokens more valuable. In ICOs, it was common for promoters to talk about the types of things they would do to make the network more functional and the tokens more valuable. They would talk about their efforts in promoting the tokens and spreading awareness of their tokens and making their tokens and network more usable. Under that rationale, the offer and sale of that token would be a security. But if the point is to make the token usable, or if the point is to make a network decentralized, then the Howey test really doesn't work once the token becomes usable or once the network becomes decentralized. For example, Ethereum was created because of Vitalik Buterin. He had a vision of creating Ethereum and for Ethereum to be decentralized. Now Ethereum is decentralized and it no longer relies on the efforts of Vitalik. But when Ethereum was first created and when Ether was first created, it wasn't decentralized. They had to use the efforts of their initial developers to get the project off the ground, but now it's no longer reliant on those developers. So Ethereum is no longer a security, and the SEC has admitted through, or at least one of the commissioners of the SEC has stated that Ethereum in its current state is no longer a security. And the same can be applied to tokens that are now functional or it can apply to networks that are decentralized, because you're no longer relying on the efforts of others. And if you have a functional token, then it's not a security. The securities laws don't really work when you're trying to develop tokens that are for a certain use, or if you're trying to develop a decentralized ecosystem. Because Commissioner Pierce recognizes the dilemma that founders face when engaging in these types of blockchain projects, she decided to propose a rule exempting certain offers and sales of tokens from the federal securities laws. Under her proposal, if you meet 5 criteria, then you are not considered a security under this proposal. First, you have to make a good faith effort to create a sufficiently decentralized network, or to create a usable token that can be consistently used within the first 3 years of the first offer and sale of your first token. So you have a 3-year time from the time you sell your tokens to create a sufficiently decentralized network, or a token that can consistently be used. A network is sufficiently decentralized if it's not under the control of a certain group of people or a certain group of companies. So if you or your founding team still have control over the network, then your network is not sufficiently decentralized. Sorry, my camera just told me that it's low power, so hopefully I can power through this and finish this video. Your network either has to be sufficiently decentralized, or your token has to be usable for a particular purpose. It doesn't have to be both. It can be either sufficiently decentralized, or it can be usable for a particular purpose. Let's say you wanted to sell Chuck E. Cheese tokens. You want these tokens to be used to buy video games off of your network. You tell us that you're going to get developers of video games onto your network. They're going to develop video games for you, and I can use these tokens to buy your video games. I buy your tokens, I go onto your network, and I cannot buy video games. That means your token is not functional for its intended purpose. And if it's not functional, you cannot rely on these rules. If I go on your network and I can buy a video game every single time I go on, or at least almost every single time I go on, then your token is developed for a particular use on your network. And in those circumstances, you can control the network, because in those circumstances, your token isn't a security, because I'm not expecting profits from buying your token. Maybe I can think, if I buy these tokens, then I can later sell it for more money because these tokens will be in demand. Well, that's really on me. It's like me buying a Beanie Baby thinking it'll go up in value. Maybe it will go up in value, but maybe not. I have no control over that, and you have no control over that if you're just creating this network for me to use the tokens and not engaging in efforts to make the tokens more valuable. Another criteria you have to meet is you have to disclose certain information that is material to a buyer in making this decision to buy your tokens. You have to tell them about your founding team, their skills and qualifications. You have to tell them specifics of your tokens, how it's going to be launched, what your token supply is, whether you're going to burn tokens, how you're going to generate these tokens. And you also have to tell them your development plan, where you are in that development plan. and how you'll bring your project to decentralization or functionality. You have to disclose transactions on your network. For example, you have to disclose in some kind of like block viewer or some kind of mechanism to allow your buyers to view all the transactions in your network. You have to publish your code so that others can use the code to develop on your network. And after these 3 years, your network has to be accessible. People have to be able to participate in your network. They have to either access your network, develop your network, or otherwise participate in your network. And you also have to ensure that your tokens are placed on an exchange so that there's liquidity in your tokens, because the idea is for these tokens to get into the hands of as many people as possible. So you have to vet your exchange to ensure that they are complying with the US and state securities laws. They're complying with federal money transmission laws. They're complying with state anti-fraud laws, money laundering laws. So you have to ensure that your exchange is legit, and you also have to tell your buyers where they can buy these tokens or exchange their tokens. The point of liquidity is to get your tokens in the hands of as many people as possible so that they can participate in this network, they can engage in this network, access this network, so that it does become something that is sufficiently decentralized. You also have to file a notice of reliance on this rule within 15 days of your first sale. So after you sell your first token, you have 15 days to file this notice of compliance. If your team sells more than 5% of tokens, you have to make this disclosure, because it lets your buyers know that maybe you're not that committed to your project, maybe you don't believe in your project. So this is important information for your buyers to know, so you have to disclose this. You have to disclose how many tokens your founding team is getting, whether there are limits on the transferability of their tokens, and whether there's a mechanism to give them additional tokens in the future. You also cannot lie if you're to rely on this rule. Federal anti-fraud provisions requires that you provide your investors, and in this case your buyers, with all facts that are material to their purchase. This means that not only can you not mislead your investors or outright lie to your investors, you also can't keep your information from investors that are material to their investment decision. So those are the 5 factors you have to meet to fall under the safe harbor for tokens. You have 3 years from the first sale to ensure that your token is fully usable or your network is sufficiently decentralized. And you also have to disclose material that is pertinent to your buyer's decision making. And you can't lie. So those are really the main points to keep in mind. This is not a final rule. That means you cannot rely on this rule to sell tokens, but this is good news for the crypto community, because it means that at least one person in the SEC is aware of what founders of crypto companies are facing, and she's proposing a strategy that will allow founders to sell tokens, give them time to develop these tokens and their networks without being in violation of the securities laws, simply because they cannot get a functioning project off the ground before selling their tokens to the public. If you have any concerns or comments, she is welcoming comments, so you can call her office, visit her office, or drop her a message on FinHub. When regulators tell the public that they want feedback, they really do want feedback. So if you have any comments, please don't hesitate to submit these comments to the Office of Commissioner Pierce. I'm sure she'll be happy to hear from you. And again, this is a proposed rule. You cannot rely on this rule. And if you are thinking of selling tokens currently, you are subject to the current state of securities laws. So you have to analyze whether your token or the sale of your tokens are securities, and you have to decide whether you have to register or decide if you can use a certain type of exemption. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please share. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.